with demand expected to come back, the question remains, does this mean the economy is back on track?
Companies now, after experimenting with offshore in places like India, Philippines, and Poland, want to bring those jobs back.
We invest in the U.S. We're the biggest exporter in the country. In the cycle we're in right now, we're creating jobs.
From Radio America, it's Neil Asbury's Made in America, the show that explores American industry, large and small, and promotes American-made products everywhere. Put Neil Asbury's Made in America to work for you.
A very big welcome to you today. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. So, Rich, how was your week? I mean, a lot of things going on. It's like, wow. I mean, you know, you just, anywhere you look, you can't get away from it. I mean, there's so many things going on, exciting things, some things that quite honestly, you know, is quite upsetting. And but then there's also a lot of good things going on. Boy, do we live in interesting times.
Yeah, we do, and they're going to get even more interesting day by day as this year moves on and we get into 2020. You know, we discussed this before the start of the year, and I said, listen, as we get into this year, you are going to see things occur against this president that you have never seen before, such as having a man who's about to go to jail for, what was that? That's right, lying to Congress, perjuring himself, actually being the star witness for that same Congress that found him basically guilty of perjuring himself in front of Congress. So that kind of defines, you know, I don't know. If you look up the word perjury, I think Webster's has a picture of what's his face right there. There it is.
Michael Cohen. Yeah.
Michael Cohen's right there, and he's waving. That's a nice thing.
Well, you know, this is kind of like a little bit of a blurb. I think it's going to, you know, it's here today, gone tomorrow. You know, I don't think we're going to have to listen to him very much longer, right?
No, you're not, because he's going to be
going to the big house.
Prison. He's going to be in prison.
He's going to the big house.
He'll be talking to, you know, all the guys in prison, and maybe he can get a job in the license plate area. I don't know what they're going to do with that place, but it's not gone.
But, you know, Richard, I mean, we've been talking a lot about the Green New Deal. I mean, we had Steve Forbes with us last week. I mean, wasn't that wonderful? And we got his perspective on socialism and the Green New Deal. It's amazing. You know, we've been doing radio for a long time, right? And, you know, we've had a lot of topics that we've talked about over the years. But this thing with the Green New Deal, I mean, this is just like totally out there. Socialism. I mean, raw socialism in America with the Democrat Party, you know, just embracing it. At least a good portion of the party is. And the other half of the party is saying, wow, this is scary stuff. You know, we got to kind of say we like it if we want to get elected. But you know, this is not what we stand for. So, I mean, there's a lot of very confused people, I think, right now in the Democrat Party.
Well, you know, they're confused, but this is their agenda. This is what they wanted to do for a while back. You know, this is the game that they're playing, and I think they take it, you know, pretty seriously. So, you know, Ocasio-Cortez is now in the Wall Street Journal just this week called her the All-American Socialist. So, yeah, you know, kind of exciting, Neil.
Yeah, an all-American socialist.
All-American socialist.
I mean, that was kind of like an oxymoron. America socialist. I mean, you know, we didn't have them over here. But anyway, there's some really high emotions going on, Rich, up in New York City. The great city, the greatest city of the world. It really is. I mean, you come from New York City, and I grew up just across the river in New Jersey. We love New York. They had an opportunity for an economic boom of historic proportions, really putting them on the map in the whole tech world, in the whole new economy. But a very, you know, I believe a minority, a small minority of people and their elective officials kicked Amazon out of town before they even turned over the first shovel to build the new foundations of a new New York City. But, you know, the people are fighting back. And, you know, we really love the Job Creators Network. I mean, they've done incredible work. And it was really, it reverberated around, and everybody was talking about the billboard in Times Square. Beautiful, beautiful Times Square that really took on the Green New Deal, took on the people who have originated and who are out there promoting it, and said, you know, think of what you're doing. 25,000 jobs, billions and billions of dollars have been booted out of our city. Why did you do that? People are fighting back. Very pleased to have with us Elaine Parker, who is the Chief Communications Officer at Job Creators Network and the people behind the Times Square billboards, and not just billboard, but billboards. Very fascinating, very, very appropriate. Elaine, welcome to Made in America.
Thanks so much for having me.
So tell me, what was the genesis of these billboards? I mean, how did that come about? I mean, you really did make world news with this.
You know, it's been pretty exciting, but initially we were just as frustrated as the rest of the country. You know, here New York had this incredible opportunity for 25,000 good-paying jobs. They were going to average $150,000 apiece. In my world, that's a good-paying job. It's not scraps. And unfortunately, AOC and her lot somehow thought that it was scraps, and they found a way to run Amazon out, and with it went, $4 billion in lost wages. And nobody's really talking about the lost economic activity that would have resulted from it. You're talking about, $12 billion in economic activity through, all of the small businesses that would have been servicing a campus like this, from the small restaurants and the deli guys and the shoe shiners and the hairdressers, and you just go on of all the types of economic activity that would have occurred, and now it's gone. Well, it's gone from New York. Those jobs are going to go somewhere else, but New Yorkers, of which the majority of them wanted it, now don't get to have this economic boon.
So, well, Rich, it is an amazing loss for New York City. I mean, you're right. I think you defined that really well. It's the multiple economic factor. That it's not just the 25,000 jobs, getting 150,000, but it's also creating the campus, creating the building, all the plumbers, all the electrician, all the concrete masonry people, all the folks that were building the area in an area that needed it. Long Island City, they really needed to have that happen. It could regenerate an entire area in a borough, just like, and I'm sure you'd agree, just like the World Trade Center, downtown regenerated all of the, the west side of the tip of Manhattan, out towards the Statue of Liberty, facing the Statue of Liberty. That whole area changed. So it's all the other things that the average Joe and Jane are not thinking about. They just lost that because someone named Ocasio-Cortez decided for them, hey, you know what? Big rich guy coming in, big company coming in, we'll show them.
And what is it? I mean, she got like 16,000 votes. 16,000 votes in a city like New York City is what put her on the map. And so you can't say that's like, everybody in New York is really behind this movement. I mean, it's a very, very small microcosm of the city. And think about this, Elaine. There's a lot of folks that's into this $15 an hour minimum wage, right? What's $15 an hour? It's $30,000 a year. $30,000 a year. So they want a minimum wage that will give you $30,000 a year, or you will make $30,000 a year. The jobs we're talking about are 5 times that, right? So the 25,000 jobs that they just lost, based on their livable minimum wage of $15 an hour, that's like 125,000, 150,000 jobs that translates to as far as dollars, as far as income. Very, very strange that you would not embrace that.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that she was elected with 16,000 votes in her district. I don't have to remind you all, but to let your audience know, it wasn't in her district that Amazon was coming. It was the neighboring district. It was Representative Carolyn Maloney, and she wanted this deal. I mean, she was on CNN right after the deal was blown, and Ocasio-Cortez was out, cheering about it. And she said, I'm a progressive. I don't understand why someone wouldn't want jobs. It used to be that we protested wars, and now we're protesting jobs. I mean, I'm amazed. The governor of New York called it a tragedy. It is a tragedy. I mean, these were good-paying jobs, and really what we're doing, this isn't just about Amazon, and it isn't just about, unfortunately, these 25,000 jobs, but it is this bigger conversation about this growing debate in America about socialism versus capitalism. And the reality is policies coming out of the far left, like Ocasio-Cortez, like the Green Deal, we call it the Green Raw Deal, because it's going to devastate our economy. And we just frankly don't understand why would we want to abandon capitalism and move to something like this when we are seeing the free markets be unleashed with entrepreneurship and innovation. I mean, we have been growing at twice the rate it did under the previous administration. Wages have grown faster than they have in a decade. Unemployment's at a 50-year low. I could go on and on and on about the positive side of our economy. Why would we want to kill that?
Hey, Elaine, we're going to have to go to a break. I know that you're at CPAC in Washington right now. Do you have a time to stay with us for a couple of more minutes and kind of give us an update of what's happening there?
I sure do.
Hey, we're talking to Elaine Parker, the Chief Communications Officer at the Job Creators Network. She's at CPAC. She's staying with us. She's going to give us an update. You don't want to miss it. Stick around.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman, and we're very pleased to have with us Elaine Parker, who is the Chief Communications Officer at the Job Creators Network, and she happens to be in Washington at CPAC. So, Elaine, give us an update. And let me tell you, since I think the Cold War, when you had the United States and the Soviet Union, and you had these two ideologies that were really competing, right? And everywhere you went, you had these competing ideologies, in the world, and, who was going to win, who was going to win. Well, it became very apparent that it was the United States and its free markets and its economic freedom, its belief in its entrepreneurs and its small businesses and its risk takers, its inventors. That's who won. That is who won the Cold War. So now we have this stark contrast once again. Could not be more different. But instead of being halfway around the world and having a competing ideology, that competing ideology is right here at home. American socialism. As we watch what's happening in Venezuela and we see what's going on there. And that's just the latest incarnation of socialism imploding. But yet, there is a growing number of people here in the United States, especially our young people, the millennials, who are giving socialism another look. Giving socialism another look. Unbelievable. So, Elaine, what's going on at CPAC, and how big is this discussion? Capitalism, economic freedom versus socialism. I mean, is that the big buzz at CPAC this year?
Well, I mean, yes. The short answer to that is yes. But the theme of CPAC this year is what makes America great. And just to give you a little background on the Job Creators Network, my organization, our founder is a man named Bernie Marcus. He co-founded the Home Depot. And, he did that. He was fired at the age of 48 and went on to had an idea that he brought to fruition. And he opened the Home Depot, his first 2 stores in Atlanta, Georgia, when he was 52 years old. And he's grown that organization to over 400,000 people. And he's done that. He's not part of the Home Depot anymore, obviously, but he did that because of our system of free enterprise. And his message, we actually had a message here from him. We played a video here at CPAC, and the 2 things that in his mind that make America great and what keeps it great is our system of free enterprise and our freedoms. And there's no other country where somebody could have had the kind of success that he had coming from nothing. He was fired and broke, and went on to start an incredible organization that employs so many people today. And that kind of energy is here. And that's what people are talking about. And this conversation that we're having about socialism is one that we need to have. And I know we all talk about the far left and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her policies like the Green New Deal. But if there's one thing I appreciate about her, it's that she's being so honest with the American people about what she wants to do and where she wants to take this country, because I'm happy to have that conversation. I know the American people like their freedoms, and they like our system of free enterprise, and I know that they will reject wholeheartedly these policies.
Well, as we discussed just before we went on air, Larry Kudlow spoke at CPAC, and he was talking about, socialism. He said, look, I want you to, he said, stay with me on this. Listen to me. What I want all of you to do is to put socialism on trial. He said, understand, I want to put socialism on trial, and I want to go through and scrutinize and ask every question and go by the numbers, and I want to explain how socialism is really a murderer in many ways, and I want you to find it guilty. I want a verdict of guilty on socialism, but I want you all to put it on trial. And it seems, I think that's a very rational statement to make, don't you? Let's look at socialism. Let's look at it from around the world and see what happened to countries. We don't have to go very far. We can just go south, as Neil pointed out in the last segment. We can go to Venezuela. We can look at Cuba. Why don't we just look at Russia? I mean, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics ended, thank you, President Reagan, because we bankrupted them. Because of all the reasons, going back even to 1917, that centralized government, centralized planning, taking away incentives for people to feel good and work, and the fruits of their labor remain with them. And you don't have to say, well, I worked hard for this, but I'm willing to give it to somebody, 3,000 miles away. Strange.
Exactly. And you mentioned all the young people that are getting behind socialism. And it's really because what they've learned in, our universities and our schools is somehow they've gone to the point where they actually equate socialism with social good.
Elaine, just very quickly, Elaine, I know we got to go. Phil, our producer, says we got to go. But do you have any more billboards coming up in New York?
Well, you never know. We just put one up on Tuesday about the Green New Deal, which is getting a lot of buzz as well. They've estimated the Green New Deal to cost anywhere between $51 trillion and $93 trillion. So you'd think that we were talking about monopoly money. So we'll have to wait and see if there's going to be another billboard coming.
Well, keep them coming. Keep them coming. They're beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
Great job. Hey, Elaine, thanks for coming on the show. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, we have former Congressman Jason Isaac from the great state of Texas. We can't get off this Green New Deal things. And Jason says that this is a massive tax. It's a massive tax on you and your children, grandchildren. This is very, very important stuff. We need to understand it. Stick around. Buckle up. It's going to be very fascinating with former Congressman Jason Isaac here in just a moment.
Made in America.
Sharply higher at the open, stocks continued to perform well over the course of the day Tuesday.
And I think that bodes well here over the next couple of years for having bigger demands coming to this country.
Now, more of Neil Asbury's Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. So, Rich, taxes, I mean, what is it? What are taxes? I mean, you take money from the most productive part of society and you give it to the most unproductive part of society, our government and our bureaucrats that have absolutely no idea how to invest it because, after all, they didn't have to work for it. It's kind of like free money. So they can do all of these boondoggles and spend all this stuff, thinking they're doing good, when actually they're taking the resources out of the hands of our entrepreneurial community that would be investing it and creating wealth for all of us. For all of us. The most beautiful thing about pursuing the American dream is as you pursue your dream, you help others to achieve their dreams. And that's what it's all about. Give our entrepreneurs the money, their hard-earned money, and let them invest it. Not some bureaucrat in Washington just flushing it down the Potomac. Man, that is absolutely insane. But more and more of our politicians are actually promoting just that. Take the money away and give it to the government bureaucrats and let's see what they can do with it, because our entrepreneurial community, after all, they didn't earn it. So it's not theirs anyway. So let's just take it. My goodness. And in the Green New Deal, I mean, this is taking it to a whole new level. We're very pleased to have with us right now a former state representative, Jason Isaac, from the great state of Texas, and he happens to be at CPAC as well. Absolutely wonderful. Hey, Jason, welcome to Made in America.
Great to be on the show. Thanks for having me on, Neil, and Rich, good to be with you as well.
So they're saying that, hey, you know, let's take this Green New Deal and let's take all this money and, you know, let's, well, you're from Texas, you know, let's get rid of fossil fuels and, you know, everything's going to be wonderful and, you know, the whole climate change and all of that. But right now, renewable energy is only 11% of what we need to run this country. It's only 11%. So let's shut down the other 89% so we can focus on the 11%. And it's going to be cold turkey because we're going to just do this like with a flip of a switch. So what do we do? I mean, what do we do for the other 89%, Jason?
Well, you start out by absolutely rejecting this anti-American resolution known as the Green New Deal, which part of it calls for complete elimination of all greenhouse gases, which is kind of funny, and that's why I keep waiting for the joke and the punchline, because this is a joke. If you eliminate all greenhouse gases, you eliminate water vapor from the air, and that ends all life on Earth. It's in the resolution to end greenhouse gases. It's just appalling to me to think that there are people that are actually thinking this way, and people have signed on to support it. Members of Congress have signed on in support of ending all human life on the planet as we know it.
Well, yeah, that's exactly correct. First of all, if you eliminate CO2, I don't think the trees are going to be very happy. And I've seen a lot of far to the left tree huggers crying because someone cut down a tree. So all the trees, all the grass, everything green, photosynthesis ends. You're right. And life on this planet as we know it, just, what's that word, disappears.
It does, and I saw a poll recently, I think 70% of Americans think that CO2 is not good for plants. And that's part of photosynthesis. It's plant food. So clearly our education system is failing in the United States if 70% of the population thinks that CO2 is actually bad for plants when it's kind of necessary for plants.
So, Jason, tell us, you know, just how important is the energy industry to Texas, which has got one of the best economies in our country? Like
yeah, we do. We've been leading the nation in job growth and energy production, and now we're actually exporting our energy, and we're exporting our American innovation, our American freedom around the world now. Places like Poland are receiving natural gas from Texas to the benefit of our roads and our public schools in the state of Texas, and to the benefit of people in Poland. The Polish are now going to have more access to cleaner, friendlier, better natural gas and reliable electricity and reliable power in Poland. So you're going to continue to see what we've seen in Texas, and that's actually improved air quality. The U.S. leads the world in improved air quality and actually air quality in general. We're actually getting the toxins out of the air in the United States greater than any other country on the world, and it's because of our economic freedom that we have here, and actually because we're using more energy. And now exporting that around the world is going to lead to cleaner air around the world.
Well, if they're talking about getting rid of fossil fuels, and we've had this dialogue, and we were referring ex-Shell President John Hofmeister, who has come out with a number of statements since Obama was the president and now out, saying that we just don't have the technology to take renewable fuels and have them replace fossil fuels. We don't have that nuclear ability to overcome the short end of energy development, so we can, power a city. You're not going to be able to power a city with wind. You're not going to be able to power a city, with a solar. That's just not going to happen. So the answer is we can't do that. And if we did want to do that, and I listen to AOC constantly talk about, well, this requires a World War III attitude. This requires the ability to, really work hard and make things happen overnight. And the truth of the matter is we don't have that ability, such as she compared it to NASA. Well, NASA didn't happen overnight, if we all recall growing up. It happened starting back in, right after Korea in the early 50s, mid-50s, and we moved on through all the different programs until 1969. We landed on the moon, and then we've gone out into other parts of space beyond that. But it certainly didn't happen in 10 years. It can happen in 10 years. So you're very, very correct.
Not.
There's no sense of reality in this.
No, there's none at all. And you talk about NASA, those space shuttles and those rockets are launching with hydrogen fuel from natural gas, where they're stripping the hydrogen molecules out of that methane. That's a beautiful thing. It's allowed us to do incredible technological advances. But you're right, we can't have a city even powered on nuclear energy. Nuclear is great for base load, but I made the mistake one time. I was in an RV and I went with the cheap little generator, and I thought, I'm going to save some money. I'm going to buy this little cheap one. Well, it powers up the lights inside the RV and on the outside, but then when I wanted to turn the air conditioner on, the generator would die. It would crash. It wasn't strong enough. It wasn't powerful. And so as people get home from work and they start using their appliances, we need good natural gas to increase the base load so that people can actually have reliable electricity. And wind and solar just don't do that, not to mention the rare earth elements that are used in the manufacturing of wind and solar that create an equal amount of radioactive waste when you mine them, and that's why they aren't mined in the United States. They're mined in other foreign countries where they have low environmental regulations and protections. People don't talk about that with wind and solar, but that's part of the fact. And so that's why we need our good hydrocarbon-based fuels, our fossil fuels, and we should be proud that we're exporting those now around the world to other countries that desperately need them. And that's one of the reasons why the last 10 years we've seen a half of people in severe poverty. They're out of severe poverty. It's gone from over 18% to now just over 8% of the world is in severe poverty. We got over 1 billion people that don't have access to electricity at all, and we've got to fight that poverty, and that's one way we do it, is we get people out of energy poverty, and they come out of poverty.
Incredible. Hey, stick with us. I mean, we have former state representative Jason Isaac from Texas talking about the energy industry, and we're going to have a lot more to talk about. Stick around. You don't want to miss it.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Ruffman, and we're together right now with the former state representative of Texas, Jason Isaac, and he happens to also be at CPAC right now in Washington. So, Jason, what is your idea? I mean, what's going on at CPAC, and what's the message that you're taking away this year?
Well, for me, it's taking away fighting socialism, and there was a great speech earlier today about fighting socialism, putting socialism on trial, and we absolutely need to do that. If you're a socialist in this country, I think you need to stop emitting CO2 and just hold your breath. And that's one way that we can truly reduce CO2 in the country right now. All joking aside, for me, it's important that I leave a message with people that we should be proud of the energy that we're producing. And, I'm part of a group called Life Powered, which is this project. It's an educational project. You can find out more at lifepowered.org. But we talk about the fact how we're reducing particulate matter out of our air, and we're leading the world in clean air. And for me, that's the message that I'm trying to leave behind. Over 60% of our population believes our environment has gotten worse since 1980, and in fact, it's actually gotten better. And that's not what people know, and that's not what they think. And so we've just got to show them the math and show them the facts and give them the information that powers life.
Well, what I find interesting, Congressman, is we have all this great resource in our country to create energy, and you're right. The common denominator in making a country survive and be successful is an inexpensive, constant, stable, count-on source of energy. We have that. And we have coal. No one ever talks about coal because coal is the bad man in the room.
Oh, my goodness. You can't mention coal.
You can't mention coal. But Neil knows, I know, we've talked about this going back to cap and trade, which, by the way, I think the Green Deal is their chance to revive cap and trade, obviously, to a degree. But there is clean coal technology, but ever since Obama, that hasn't been talked about. There's been great strides in taking coal and using it, but they don't want to hear about that. No less, of course, that they don't want to hear about natural gas. They don't want to hear about any hydrocarbons. What's your take on that?
Well, I think you're right. The Green New Deal is maybe a negotiating point, like, hey, we're going to go as crazy far as we can to socialism and communism and control of the entire energy production in the U.S. and then maybe we'll negotiate to cap and trade or to a carbon tax where we can actually do this greatest, T. Boone Pickens talked about us buying energy from foreign countries as the greatest transfer of wealth in man, and we've actually reversed that. Now we're exporting our energy, and really what a carbon tax would be is another greatest transfer of wealth.
Well, what I find amazing in all these massive programs that AOC and the far and the left are talking about, including Kamala Harris and Spartacus Booker, and all the others over there, and Bernie, of course, who started this whole thing a few years ago. Here they're saying, well, we want to have massive programs. We're going to give away money. We're going to give everybody expanded Medicare. We're going to buy the money would be the same as Social Security. Well, those programs are going to go bankrupt in 8 to 10, 15 years, and here we're about to spend $70 trillion. There's no sense of connecting the dots. Like, if, in fact, right now, those who paid into it can have it in 8 years, yet we're going to get the rest of the country on it. How does that work?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a copyrighted slogan I use, "Make America Like Texas," drives some people on the left crazy, but we do things right in with our Texas limited government. We're one of the largest economies in the world, the second largest in the United States, but granted, we've got over $12 billion in our savings account, which the other economy that's a little larger than ours doesn't have a savings account, and they've got massive amounts of debts. But the 10th largest economy.
But all the people in all the people in that other economy are moving to Texas.
Yeah, they are. And when they get there, I say, welcome to Texas, vote accordingly, because we don't need their ideals and the way they vote coming into our state and ruining it.
We have we live in Florida, and same thing is happening between New York and Florida. They're flocking down here from New York. Just don't bring your policies down here. Don't make us like New York, or where else are we going to run to?
Yeah, and by per capita in Texas, we have the 43rd largest government, which means there are 6 or 7 states that are smaller government per capita than the state of Texas. When we're the 10th largest economy in the world, the second largest in the United States, per capita, we've got one of the smallest governments in the country. There's a model there that needs to be replicated. When you've got a smaller government, you've got more freedom, you actually get more of your money, and the markets work. If you don't want to buy a product that you don't like, don't. But don't force regulations on me that drive my cost up and hurt my family and the least among us more than anyone else. And that's what Bernie Sanders and these other people are trying to push with these Green New Deals that aren't green, they're not new, and it's definitely not a deal.
Hey, Congressman, it has been really wonderful to have you with us. Former State Representative Jason Isaac from the great state of Texas. Pay attention what they're doing there. It works, and it works very, very well. It's a magnet. It's a magnet economy. People from all over our country, all over the world, are going to Texas because they figured it out. Thanks for being on our show, Congressman.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Great talking to you.
I can't believe it, Rich. But it's already time for segment 5. What an incredible show. Stay with us. We're going to end this with a bang.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. Wow, Rich, this show has just flew by. Wonderful guests. Elaine Parker and what they're doing with their billboards in New York City. And it's always great to hear from former Congressman Jason Isaac in Texas and the Texas model and what Texas has been able to figure out. It's there right in front of us. I mean, it's like that shiny city on the hill that President Reagan used to talk about. There it is. It's glowing. It's glowing. It's attracting. You can see it from far, far away. And it works. And you have a lot of these blue state folks, especially out west, flocking to Texas because it works. Yet there's this huge growing movement within the Democrat Party. You actually call it Democrat socialists. They're not even afraid of the name socialists anymore. They're embracing the name socialists and being, in promoting socialism in America. It's absolutely stunning to see these two competing forces in our country today, Rich. And it's almost impossible to talk about anything else. I mean, everything else pales against this dynamic, this battle for America's future, for our heart, for our prosperity, for our strength, for our future.
I have to stand up right now and do the salute and sing the national anthem after that.
I said we're going to end it with a bang.
So I think we need to do that. But no, Neil, I do find it amazing that here we are in the 21st century, in the land of the home of the free, the home of the brave, and the free people. Give me liberty or give me death. That's what we were based on, a country that was founded on the Puritan work ethic. That means work hard, be independent, and our forefathers came here for what reason? They came here hundreds of years ago because they were leaving an oppressive, controlled society where there was no hope to move up. And who controlled everything? Well, it was the government. And they come here. We're talking about, in the 1600s and 1700s and the 1800s and the massive influx in the late 1900s, early 20th century. And now we have a different type of immigrant coming here. But they're coming here for a reason. If socialism was so great, Neil, why don't they stay in Honduras? Why don't they stay in Venezuela? Why don't they stay in throughout Central America? Why don't they stay in Cuba? Why did people? We're in South Florida, so this is kind of nothing new for us. Why did people risk their lives practically swimming? Because they'd be on tire
literally
tubes,
swimming
tire tubes coming out of Cuba. Now, what is Cuba? A communist socialist country, a failed communist socialist
Rich,
country. Why would they come here and risk that?
I have a home in Isla Morada down in the Keys, and, I'm out there fishing, 15, 20 miles offshore. And I've seen a number of rafts out there. And you can't, believe, well, you would believe, some of the things that they've actually tried to get to America on. I mean, it's scary stuff.
Yeah, but the question is, Neil, why would they do that?
It's no picnic.
Well, wait a minute. If socialism... let's put it on trial. Larry Kudlow said we need to put it on trial. If socialism worked, why aren't millions of people trying to get into Cuba? After all, they're going to give them everything that AOC is saying. They're getting a free education. They get a guaranteed income, Neil.
I'd say, Rich, that socialism has been on trial over and over and over again, and it's been convicted.
I just find it amazing. We've traveled the world. You've been traveling the world. You lived overseas for so long. You've seen what repressive societies are like. Why would people even in Berlin in the 60s, 70s, 80s, until Gorbachev tore down that wall, which he didn't tear it down, we did it for him. They just didn't do anything about it because they became irrelevant. Why would people risk getting shot by multiple machine guns to get from East Berlin to West Berlin? Because East Berlin was a socialist group. They were actually the political party controlling East Berlin were Social Democrats. Social Democrats. Well, wait a minute. Isn't that what the Democrats are saying, Neil? We got to look into that.
Well, I have a feeling, Dr. Rothman, that this isn't going to be the last time that we have this discussion. It is very important, though. I don't know of anything more important than to protect our freedom. And one of those most important freedoms is our economic freedom. Everything stems from that. Unfortunately, though, we're out of time. But we're going to be back again next week for another adventure of Made in America, where we never stop fighting for your jobs.